There was a moment in history when humanity teetered on the edge of extinction, a time when our very existence hung by a thread. Fewer than 10,000 people survived. Every step they took was a desperate fight against a world turned hostile. The disaster that almost erased us began not with war, but with a mountain's wrath. Mount Toba had slept for millennia, but deep inside, fire was gathering strength. Our ancestors lived unaware of the danger, laughing, hunting, and telling stories under the warm savanna sun. One morning, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble with a force they had never felt before. The air grew heavy, carrying a strange, choking scent that signaled the beginning of the end. In an instant, the earth split open, and the sky filled with fire. Some ran. Some stood frozen in horror. All knew their world had changed forever. That night, the heavens themselves seemed to burn, and day would not return for years. Before the eruption, life was full of simplicity, yet rich in connection. Our ancestors thrived by the rhythms of nature, hunting and gathering to survive. The vast savannas were home to herds of antelope and wild buffalo, providing food and challenges for the early hunters. Berries, roots, and seeds were gathered along the banks of rivers, ensuring their survival in a fragile world. They traded shells, beads, and tools with distant tribes, forming connections that spanned miles. Around campfires, stories were shared under the vast, star-filled sky, lessons passed down from generation to generation. The children ran along riverbanks, laughing as they chased each other through the shallows, the world around them teeming with life. The hunters, skilled in their craft, stalked their prey with patience and precision. Mothers spent hours weaving baskets and preparing meals from the wild harvests, their hands steady and sure. The elders passed down their wisdom, teaching the young how to track animals, how to survive. The world was rich, full of promise. But this fragile balance would soon be shattered by nature's fury. Far from the savannah in what is now Indonesia, a dormant giant was stirring. Toba, the volcano, was waking up. For thousands of years, Mount Toba had slept quietly. But now, the earth beneath it began to tremble. Magma, swirling deep below the surface, began to gather in vast chambers, pushing against the earth. Creatures in the forest began to flee, sensing that something terrible was coming. Birds took to the sky in large flocks, their instinct guiding them away from the impending danger. The humans, living their lives, had no idea of the impending catastrophe. They were completely unaware. But their fate was sealed. The eruption was coming, and it would change everything. What followed was a cataclysm unlike anything Earth had ever seen before. The world would soon be plunged into darkness. Mount Toba erupted in a violent fury, a cataclysm that shook the very foundations of the earth. The sky darkened, the sun was hidden by ash, the world was plunged into a strange, suffocating twilight. Lava cascaded down mountainsides, rivers of molten rock consuming everything in their path. For years the earth would remain in darkness as the world's climate turned cold and hostile. Food became scarce, wildlife vanished, and humans, fragile as they were, faced their darkest hour. But some survived. Through the worst of it, they held on to life, refusing to let go. The volcanic winter descended. Snow fell where there had once been lush forests. The world became a wasteland. Every day was a fight for survival, every night colder than the last. They hunted smaller animals, gathered roots, and fished from icy waters. But still, many perished. Yet even in this frozen world, hope remained. Small communities bonded together, fighting to live. The struggle for survival was their only concern. The world outside was no longer recognizable, but from this darkness, the seeds of a new beginning would slowly be sown. As the climate began to shift, the survivors rebuilt. They adapted to a world forever changed. They hunted again, gathered plants, and fished. Slowly the earth began to heal, and so did they. New generations were born. They were raised on stories of survival, of the time when the world almost ended. Their resilience became the foundation for what would come next. The survivors of Toba did more than endure. they thrived, and from their strength, humanity would rise again. Today, we number 8 billion, but the story of Toba's eruption is a stark reminder of nature's power. We live with the echoes of those who survived, who endured the harshest conditions the Earth has ever known. What happened in those dark years shaped who we are today, reminding us of our fragility. We are resilient, but we are also vulnerable. Nature can change in the blink of an eye. The question is, if we are ever pushed to the brink again, will we be ready?